All right, kids, we're back. Today we're doing a fun video. I had a customer that had some really nice Mangalitzas, and they kind of gave me free range, kind of butcher's choice on what they were doing for cuts, which for a butcher with a YouTube channel is fantastic news to hear. So all three pigs are all cut up. The hams on the boar were grind. So what we are going to do is, these are all 4 hams from the sows, and we are going to break them up into multiple different cuts. We're just going to show you the things you can do with them. Hams are one of those things. It's either people love them or people hate them. Me personally, I would rather just grind it and end up with more sausage. I've got little kids. I know they're going to eat sausage. But we are going to do, one of these hams is going to be whole. We're going to do a half ham for smaller dinners, ham steaks, and then the last one is going to be kind of a combination. We're going to do some pork cutlets, stir fry, and then grind the rest. So what I am going to go ahead and do is, first off, I'll set you up over at the saw. I'll show you how I break hams down, just into the different cuts that make everything a little more manageable to do. So yeah, we'll hop you over there. All right, so we're back. We got all these broken down. We've separated the hocks from the hams themselves. If you look, I separate them right under where the knee is. It gives you a good, nice chunk. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go through and clean this up, because what I take off is this chunk, just because a little better presentation of the hock. Now, so that's how that's gonna look. Now with this, you can smoke them, put them in beans, toss them in the crock pot. They're great in the crock pot. So I'm definitely gonna be sending these with them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop you on time lapse. I'm gonna finish cleaning up these hocks, and I will get all of the excess fat off of these hams and get them ready to break down. All right, so now that you've seen me breeze through those 3, I'm gonna go ahead and do this one, just regular speed. This is the one that is going to be grind, stir fry, and cutlets. So we're gonna be trimming this one pretty much all the way. So I do not save my ham fat, just because, in my opinion, it does not render down the same. It's a little bit different consistency, and in my opinion, it just doesn't make the best lard. And with the breed that these pigs are, these customers have plenty of back fat and knee fat coming back, so I'm not too worried about it. And again, it's kind of like with hams, it's kind of like skinning. Is you just kind of got to work it down, get off what you can, flip as you go. When I worked at the USDA facility I worked at, I was the ham guy. We would do anywhere between 13 and 16 pigs every weekend, or every week. And all the hams would come to my bench. So I got very well versed in the works of ham. So we're gonna clean this off. This section, this is the pelvis, or we also call it the H-bone. I remove the H-bone out of all my hams. I know a lot of people don't, they'll leave it in, especially if they're doing like a whole ham or a half ham. For me, I never really saw the point, besides, yes, it does give you flavor, but you still have that main femur bone running down, and when it's cooked and you're ready to serve it, it's a pain in the butt to carve around that H-bone and get everything out. So, and also packing wise, it, again, just makes everything easier. So I go ahead and I take the H-bone out. First you gotta come in, pop this oyster out, and we will go ahead, toss that dry. Then you can see I already kind of started it there. Put your finger there, careful not to cut yourself, and just follow that bone down. This is where your flex knife really comes into play. So as you can see right here, here is the H-bone, and here's the beginning of the femur. Now in there, you can kind of see it right there. There's a little tendon in there. I know I've talked about it before on some other things, but as soon as you cut that, it all separates. And then it's really just working your way down the knife, working your way down the bone. And just clean it up a little bit. And toss that. All right, so we'll pop that off. That's where the open meat was exposed from splitting the animal. So out of this one, we're gonna do a couple different things just to kind of spice things up. I always start with the bottom of the ham facing me, and I start right at this femur. Now if you look, most of these animals are built pretty similar. They have a lot of the same primal cuts in there. So this is the exact same as a top round and a tip. And as you can see, like on a beef, there is a line right here where everything separates. So I'm gonna get my knife in there, put it right up against that bone, and work my way down. We're gonna pop this top round right out. All right, there's a pork top round, and now we're just gonna debone the rest of this ham. Come around on this side, we'll pop the tip right off. Now with this part, so right here is the kneecap. And much like everything else, the kneecap is actually not attached to the bone. It's attached with tendons. So you can work your way right around that. Got that loose. Toss that femur. All right, so now we have a nice boneless ham. So what I'm gonna do is separate the rest of this out. Come around here, we'll pop that kneecap out. Just to show you, that's what that looks like. So there's your tip, piece of heel, not as in like the heel on your foot, that's just what that cut is. There's your eye round and your bottom round. So we're gonna start with the bottom round. We're gonna clean this up. I'm gonna go ahead and grind the eye round just because it's the eye round. I have a real love-hate relationship with that cut. So come around, so that's pretty clean. All right, so now the bottom round's all clean, trimmed up. Trim that up a little bit. What I'm gonna do, come in here, and cut it in half. You can see, hopefully, the grain on that. All of the grain is moving this way. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut this way. Make everything cross grain. So we're gonna start there, toss that. Just cut stir fry. I love pork stir fry, my kids love pork stir fry. And again, if you're not huge ham eaters, we're gonna go ahead and cut that in half, make little smaller chunks too. If you're not a huge ham eater and you don't want piles of sausage, this is a good alternative. So there's that. Once again, grain going this way, we're gonna cut this way. All right, and that is what we're gonna do for stir fry. We're gonna go ahead and grind this tip, just because on a beef tip, they're big enough you can really seam them out well and get some good muscle cuts out of them. With pigs, they're just not big enough. And by the time you're done trimming, you're not gonna have a whole lot. And like I said, we're just gonna go ahead and grind that eye round. So they want a lot of sausage. So a lot of sausage they're gonna get. All right, so top round. Same as the beef top round. But with this case, we're going to trim this up a little bit more. So we're gonna go ahead, where you would leave the cap on a beef top round, we're gonna go ahead and pop that off, clean this up a little bit. Flip it around. There's a section where all the veins run through it. And you can already see it start to open. Right here is that seam. Cut that right there. Trim this up, get nice and pretty. So we are going to do cutlets out of this. So again, you could just cook these in a pan for like a breakfast chop or something like that. What I really like to do is make schnitzel. So I'll take them, pound them out, bread them, fry them, make some gravy to toss on top, and they're absolutely fantastic. So we're gonna start that cut and just very thin. With a pig this size, they're not gonna be country fried steak style because of the size, but these are good little bites. So these fry up really quick. They're absolutely delicious. The whole family loves them. We'll get 2 packages out of this. All right. So that is a package. pork cutlet strips. Again, fry these up. Oh, they are absolutely fantastic. Got 2 packages of those, 2 packages of stir fry. So, this one needs to be cleaned up a little bit more. But I think what I'm going to end up doing, because as I'm looking at this, I do not think I have cryovac bags big enough. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is we'll do 2 half hams. Two of the hams will be halved, make it a little bit easier, and you can spread those meals out. Because if you're in the situation where it's Christmas and you need a whole ham, you can cook both sides. So if you look at how this ham is, like I said, we pulled the pellet, we pulled the H-bone out, so you already have this ridge right here. The tip of your bone, the end of your bone where the knee is right here, and here's the end of your femur. So that is a good starting point to where you are going to cut. You are going to cut perpendicular to the bone. You don't want to start going this way, because all of a sudden you're going to have wonky bones, none of the cuts are going to be look right, and it's just not going to eat very well. So depending on whether or not you keep the H-bone in or you take it out, you can always tell where you're going to start cutting. So I always start my cut, say if we were doing ham steaks, which I will show you on this, but since we're doing a half ham, I'm going to go ahead and cut it on the bandsaw right here. So that way you have a really nice ham roast over here, really nice ham roast over there. All the bones bones will be uniform. It'll cook evenly and cut right. So I'm gonna go ahead, stop this, pop you up back over on the saw, and we will slice these babies up. All right, so we're back. So what I am going to do, I decided while I got over there, we're gonna go ahead and bone this one out. We'll do some half boneless hams. Again, add a little variety to what's going on. First, I am gonna set these up. I'll bone all that out at the end. We'll clean these up and get these on the tray. I'll show you the whole tray after the fact, how everything looks. You can kind of see it the angle you're at, but we'll give you a good view of it and just kind of go through everything we just did. Take all this bone dust off. These mango pizzas are so nice. The coloration on them is fantastic. They are a little bit harder to raise just because of the length of time it takes to actually get them to bone maturity, which is where you would like to slaughter them. Especially up in the area we're at. It takes about, you're looking at between 14 and 16 months. These guys were a couple years old. That's why they are the size they're at. This was breeding stock. But again, came out fantastic. So these are your bone-in hams. We'll clean them up. And again, you don't need a bandsaw to do this. If you were to want to do ham steaks like this, what you could do is, say it's whole like that, take your knife, cut all the way around the bone, then with either a bone saw, or you can do it with a Sawzall, cut that bone in half. I would highly suggest if you do that, do not do 1-inch thick chops like I did with this. You are going to hate yourself. It's not a super fun ordeal when you're doing them that thick. That's where you're doing like 2-inch chops. It just makes life easy. Gonna change that glove out. But again, if you wanted to do a half ham like this and you didn't have a bandsaw like I do, you can go through and just do that by hand. Another good, how I mentioned that you always want to go perpendicular to the bone off of where the H-bone is. if you look at it, so again, here's one that is whole. If you look at it, again, there's the bone. There's always a point right where that is. So at that point, if you're doing a half ham, cut it there and you're good to go. Finish doing that. All the bone dust off. Toss that on that tray. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and bone this out. So we're gonna do the exact same thing we did with the one that was stir-fry cutlets and grinds. Start right at this bone right here. As you can see, when you line it up, you don't even really cut the meat. You're really just nicking right through that membrane, or right up against that membrane. So, take this little chunk off. Now, the customer didn't really specify whether or not they wanted bones. I know people are probably looking at this going, oh, my dog would love that. I do not suggest giving pork bones to dogs. They are a little more delicate than beef bones. They're just not as big, and they tend to splinter. So unless you would like an expensive vet bill, I would not suggest giving pork bones to dogs. You can make pork stock. Again, you toss them in beans, gravies, stuff like that. Take that knee out, clean this up a little bit, just some work where some of the tendons and stuff attach. And so now, if you wanted to do a whole boneless roast, that's what that would look like. We're gonna go ahead and cut it in half. Just again, to make life easy. Again, these are good for just everyday dinner. If you want to do a pork roast in the oven, if you wanted to cure these and smoke them, and then put it on a deli slicer, or even just with a knife, cut them in half, or not in half, I apologize. Cut them into slices, you have your own deli ham. So, what I'm actually gonna do before I cut it in half is we're gonna go ahead and give it a tie. So that way, everything's a little more uniform. So I would usually, on most roasts, do the continuous knot, which is where you make one loop at the end, and then loop it all the way through, and it makes a nice even tie. So I'm going to make my first knot slightly off the center. So I have my starting point. And what I like to do is just bounce back and forth. So once again, slightly off the center. So when I do finally make my cut, I'm going to be cutting it right here, right in between these. Now it's super important when you're tying, you don't want to start at one end and just push everything over. Now, if I wanted to, I could start in the middle and work my way to one side, come back to the middle, work my way to the other side. Just me personally, I like to alternate back and forth. Because what you're really trying to do, and the whole point of tying, is make the roast even. You don't want it uneven and cooking wonky. You want everything to be even so it cooks evenly. All right, so we got two on that side. so we'll do one more on both sides, because on this side, we're getting to where we pulled that kneecap out. We're gonna toss one more right in the middle here, if everything works to plan. All right, so I'm starting to slip a little bit there. Something you can do, tiny little cut right there. Now, that's not gonna affect the cooking at all, but what it does, it gives me a spot where that rope is gonna sit. Makes everything a little more even. Like I said, one more on this side. Toss all that out. All right, so now we're gonna come back, find where that knot is, square that up, take that tiny piece of rope out, because no one wants that in a burger. Spin around to this other side. Again, this is where the H-bone was, and we trimmed a bunch of stuff. So we'll just square that off. And right down the middle. So there's that, and what we're gonna do, what I like to do on hams, is I also like to do a couple cross ties, just to make sure everything's nice and snug and stays together. Again, you don't have to. I like to personally, just because it guarantees everything's gonna be tight. So that's one. Two. Three. There is that. Do the same thing on this side, flip this over. All right, so now you have two really nice boneless ham roasts. So I am gonna go ahead, bring this tray over, and we'll just kind of look at everything we got over here. All right. So, out of those 4 hams, we have 2 bone-in roasts, 2 boneless roasts, 4 ham steaks. Again, those came out really nice. 2 packages of cutlets. I'll make that 2 packages of stir fry, and I'll package all these hocks 2 per package, just because they're a little bit smaller. And then probably, once I get the rest of those scraps cut, I would say close to about 15 pounds of grind. So, like I said, there's a lot you can do with hams, whether you keep them whole or any variety of these options. That's a question I get a lot of, what are we doing with this? Well, it's completely up to you. We can do whatever you want. It all depends on what your family wants. Like I said, if Easter's a really big thing for you and you have your Easter ham and you're looking forward to putting that pig in the freezer and eating that ham for Christmas, go ahead and do a whole ham. The size of the family, a half a ham. Ham steaks, great all the time. You can also do ham steaks after the curing process. So you can go ahead, put on the cure, smoke the ham, get it to temp, do whatever you need to do with that. Then after the fact, again, if you have a bandsaw, run them on the bandsaw. If you don't, same thing, use a knife. Cut all the way around the bone. Then with a handsaw, you could even do it with a hacksaw. Anything you got, cut that bone in half, and you got some really nice pork steaks. So just saw the opportunity to make a cool video, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope it was helpful. So stay tuned to see what's coming on next. I think we're gonna be doing another farm tour coming up, just because we have had a lot of changes going on here. We'll pop this back up so you're not just staring at my meat. So we got a lot of stuff that has happened already, a lot of stuff that's coming up forward. Coming up, there will be an electric fence video going for that main pasture. So I am looking forward and dreading that one. If you are looking for a podcast to listen to, I was on the Renegade Butcher podcast with Josh, the Renegade Butcher, and we had a butcher roundtable, and it was so nice. Ended up being basically a butcher therapy session, but I was on that with Josh. Joseph from Blakeslee Acres was on there. Go check out his stuff if you get a chance. His YouTube channel is fantastic. And Tiffany Baxter from Backyard Butchery down in Oklahoma. Go and check all of her stuff out. Absolutely great. She's big on TikTok. She's got a lot of stuff going on over there. So that we went off. We probably had about I think it was about 2 hours and 15 minutes. We had a good conversation, had a lot of fun. I think we've talked about trying to do that at least once a month or something like that. So we will see. Go and check that out. Go subscribe to all of those guys' stuff. It's fantastic. It's good content. They're good friends of mine. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we will see you guys next time.